According to the Wall Street Journal, Donald Trump really was spied on. The latest filing from John Durham shows that someone had infiltrated Donald Trump's servers both as a candidate and as president, and the goal was to draw an inference or narrative that Donald Trump was working with the Russians. That is to say, it sounds like the accusation is someone was trying to frame Donald Trump as a Russian asset. Trump, of course, has come out and said in stronger times, this would have warranted the death penalty. Many outlets are saying Clinton had spied on Donald Trump or paid for the spying, but there is some nuance here. And of course, depending on what you read, you may not get a clear picture. So I'm going to try to be as precise as possible in explaining exactly what is going on so you can understand this story that may be one of the craziest and most egregious scandals in U.S. history. Some have said this is bigger than Watergate. I think it's fair to say that's true. But of course, you've got to be careful about framing. Right now, the New York Times and even CNN are trying to frame this as though the right-wing media is pumping out disinformation. Well, the reality is, certainly, there are people who will not give the benefit of the doubt to the Clinton campaign, her lawyers, and the tech firms who worked on her behalf. And there are people at the New York Times who will use every technicality and circuitous method to claim Clinton had nothing to do with this. Why, in fact, MSNBC put out a story already that says latest filing does not claim that Hillary Clinton spied on Trump. And this is a trick used by fact checkers to dismiss serious stories. The accusation is, and I'll try to be very careful here because I want to read these stories and give you the precise language, but Hillary Clinton had retained a law firm which had retained the services of a tech company who had an executive do certain things, and I'm hope I'm getting those details correct, but the point is, yes, Hillary Clinton did not walk up to a guy and say, go spy on Donald Trump. But if you're trying to figure out what's going on, you've got to look at who's paying these companies, what these companies do, which brings us to the latest development. Joe Biden's campaign had the same firm on payroll. Now, I know many people might be saying, yes, so what? Presidential campaigns and politicians hire these companies. But it was only the Biden campaign and Clinton campaign out of all the presidential campaigns who actually used this service. That is to say, birds of a feather flock together. And I would not be surprised to learn that the Joe Biden campaign is effectively the same thing as the Clinton campaign in terms of who's doing work for them, who they know. Now, of course, there may be no wrongdoing on the part of the company. It may be one rogue actor. But like I said, people on the right are not willing to give Hillary Clinton and the people within the Democratic establishment the benefit of the doubt. If something stinks within this building, that is all of these establishment politicians, suffice it to say, they all knew something was happening. And of course, were Hillary Clinton or Joe Biden actually involved in directing these people to spy on Trump, they would, of course, have some kind of shield to present plausible deniability. But this brings us to some mainstream news reporting. Hillary Clinton's own tweets suggesting that Donald Trump was somehow involved in the Russians suggests it was on purpose. And previous reporting has suggested that Hillary Clinton herself was trying to frame Donald Trump in this way. Now, again, I'll try to be very precise here, but these stories exist and they're quite damning. The New York Times, CNN, and these other media outlets, of course, trying everything in their power to draw doubt onto these stories. But I just got to say, it doesn't matter who you believe. It doesn't matter if you're right or wrong. What matters is stories like this will sow hyperpolarization, which already exists. And at the same time this story is going on and the right is pointing the finger at the Democratic establishment, they're doing the exact same thing with the January 6th committee. Now, it may matter to you and to your principles and to your beliefs. It matters who is telling the truth because you want to be on the side of the good guys and the honest. But right now, setting that aside, if these divisions continue and the use of federal law enforcement continues against political rivals, the only thing that really matters to you as a regular working class American or someone who's interested is where this will lead to us in terms of conflict. And you know my stance on this. I think it's going to get very, very dark, possibly hot conflict. But let's read what's happening. more indictments are expected. And those on the Trump side of things are bullish that Durham is going to go after more people. And with the Washington Free Beacon reporting that Biden had the same firm on his payroll, many suggest Joe Biden is being implicated in this scandal based on that alone. But what does that really mean? Well, being implicated in a scandal is not the same as being implicated in a crime, mind you, but it'll take some investigation to see what happens. And I firmly believe this year, next year, and notably 2024, it is going to get hotter and hotter until it's too hot to handle. I'll put it that way. Because for political reasons, you're going to see more news come out attempting to smear political opponents. Let's read the news and get to the bottom of what's going on, at least for now. Before we get started, head over to timcast.com and become a member if you want to support the work I'm doing here. If you want to support our organization and our journalists, we are principally funded thanks to memberships by you over at timcast.com. As a member, you will be supporting our journalists and myself, but you'll also get access to exclusive members-only podcasts from Timcast IRL with our guests Monday through Thursday at 11 p.m. Episodes you don't want to miss because they're not family-friendly and they're fairly uncensored. But, the main point is you'll be supporting our work. So don't forget to smash that like button, subscribe to this channel, share this video wherever you can. Let's read the first story from the Washington Free Beacon. Biden had firm at center of Trump hacking scandal on campaign payroll. News Star Information Services executive allegedly wanted Clinton administration post. The Biden campaign paid nearly $20,000 to a cybersecurity firm at the center of special counsel John Durham's investigation into the origins of the Trump-Russia probe. The campaign paid News Star Information Services in 2020 for accounting and compliance work, according to Federal Election Commission records. According to Durham, News Star's chief technology officer, Rodney Joff, accessed sensitive web traffic data that the company maintained on behalf of the White House Executive Office in order to collect derogatory information about Donald Trump. Joff allegedly provided the information to Hillary Clinton's campaign. Lawyer Michael Sussman, who in turn gave it to the CIA during a meeting in February of 2017. Durham charged Sussman in September with lying to the FBI about his investigation of Trump. The Biden campaign's payments raised questions about whether Joff continued snooping on Trump in the most recent election. The Biden and Clinton campaigns are the only two presidential committees to have ever paid News Star, according to the FEC. Biden's campaign paid News Star $18,819 on September 29, 2020, the records show. The Clinton campaign paid the firm $3,000 in May of 2015 for mobile phone services. The Democratic Congressional Campaign Committee paid $3,000 to News Star in 2017. News Star executives and staffers contributed $17,906 to Biden's campaign, FEC records show. It is unclear what News Star executives knew of Joff's activities on behalf of the Clinton campaign. Durham alleges that Joff and his associates mined the White House traffic data for the purpose of gathering derogatory information about Donald Trump. Joff, who retired from News Star in September, allegedly told associates that he was investigating Trump in order to please VIPs on the Clinton campaign. He also allegedly wanted a job in the Hillary Clinton administration. Joff and News Star have not been named in court filings for the Sussman case, but Joff's attorneys have confirmed his involvement in the matter to news outlets. Joff has not been charged with wrongdoing. News Star and Joff's lawyers did not respond to requests for comment. The White House referred the Washington Free Beacon to the Democratic National Committee for comment. The organization did not respond. Trump called for criminal charges against the operatives who sought out his digital dirt. Quote, "This is a scandal far greater in scope and magnitude than Watergate, and those who were involved in and knew about this spying operation should be subject to criminal prosecution." It's a complicated story. Deeply, deeply complicated. Let me show you a simple Google search so I can show you where we're at. When you search for John Durham, you get a couple really interesting stories. One, MSNBC says, Durham court filing doesn't say Hillary Clinton spied on Donald Trump. Of course, the headline for this is actually different from what Google lists it as. You also have the New York Times saying court filing started a furor in right-wing outlets, but their narrative is off track. And just right next to it, the Wall Street Journal, Trump really was spied on. Now listen, what you need to understand is you will never encounter a circumstance where there's going to be a recording of Hillary Clinton going to a lawyer and saying, "I want you to spy on Donald Trump. Make it look like he's working with Russia." That would be insane. If someone was actually going to engage in something as illegal as this, something that I believe warrants seditious conspiracy charges, I think they would play it a little safer than that and maybe go to someone and say, oh, won't someone rid me of this priest? Never directly asking for something to happen, but generating plausible deniability in a recordingless environment so that people know what they're doing, but it can never be tied back to someone at the top. Hillary Clinton did tweet about this. She has been accused of trying to distract from her email scandal by smearing Donald Trump as a Russian agent or asset, but doesn't explain why in February, after Donald Trump was already president, they continued. Unless this goes deeper than people realize. Perhaps it's nothing. Perhaps it's a rogue actor who hated Donald Trump. But then you take a look at what happened with the Mueller investigation and how deep this went. And it stands to reason they never stopped. Whoever they is outside of this Sussman guy maybe involves Hillary Clinton, maybe not, maybe Biden, maybe not. Right now, all we know is they paid these people. But it seems like, at least to me, there was an effort to undermine the presidency of a sitting president because he was the wrong guy, because they didn't want to lose to him, because they didn't like that he was going to uncover their wrongdoing, because they didn't like that he was going to ask about Ukraine. Let me just say something, because I hate conspiracy theories. I really, really, really do. I want to see the data, okay? I want to see the facts. And right now we know a firm that was on the payroll of 2 presidential campaigns engaged in, what may be criminal activity. At least it's been alleged. Now, that alone is for me to say, okay, yeah, I'm willing to Google search and look beyond this. When Donald Trump made a phone call to the president of Ukraine and stumbled upon something dark, because I think Trump bumbled into it, didn't know what he was talking about, he said, Joe Biden, there's this video of him bragging about saying he's going to withhold aid to Ukraine unless they fire a prosecutor. Can you look into that? Boy, did the establishment and the media go nuts. They accused Donald Trump of abusing his power to go after a political rival. But Joe Biden wasn't running for president at the time. And the response from the establishment was, well, we all know he will be. We all know that he's gonna run. Therefore, to me, it was quite confusing because Joe Biden admittedly did this. And we know about the Burisma scandal and Zlochevsky, and there's a lot of details there. But all of a sudden, they went after Trump, and they went after him hard. They impeached him over this. They didn't get a conviction, but they tried claiming he did something wrong. A quid pro quo. They had no real evidence. Now I'll show you this. We have this story. Maybe unrelated, but it just really makes me wonder. That's all I can really say. U.S. closes Ukraine embassy and destroys computer equipment ahead of expected Russian invasion. Russia's apparently withdrawing its troops, said they never intended to follow through on an invasion. In Ukraine, they're saying there's not going to be an invasion. And all of a sudden we get a story that the U.S. orders evacuations, pumps up this narrative and sends out troops and then destroys computer equipment. I think it's crazy they destroyed computer equipment. I mean, couldn't they just take it? Couldn't they just bring it back? Maybe it's nothing. Maybe there's no real evidence as to why it's happening. But I will say, if there is an accusation made by Donald Trump about Joe Biden gets in office and then within a year they destroy computer equipment in Ukraine, Donald Trump made accusations. He said, I saw this. There was a quid pro quo. This, to me, I'd say probable cause. You accuse a guy of wrongdoing in Ukraine, then all of a sudden the Ukraine embassy is ordered closed under the Biden administration and they start destroying computers. I'm going to be like, what was on those computers? Not that it's evidence of anything. Not that it's evidence that Joe Biden ordered the destruction of this. Just that it's really, really bad timing for this administration. And I think it's enough for me to say, I'd like to ask some questions about what was on those computers. Maybe it's nothing. In fact, I think it's entirely possible. There is nothing here. But I just don't like it. I don't like that Hillary Clinton destroyed 30,000 emails. I don't like this. Well, here's the latest news. Durham probe has accelerated with more people cooperating and coming before a grand jury. Durham has run his investigation very professionally, sources tell Fox News Digital. We also have this. Former Director of National Intelligence Ratcliffe told Durham intelligence supports multiple indictments in probe. Hillary Clinton purportedly approved a plan to distract the public from her email scandal, sources told Fox News. It's hard to know it's true. You know, on our side of things, freedom, honesty, truth, we have a challenge. And that challenge is we want to be honest and we want to make sure we have the facts on our side. As for Hillary Clinton and Democrats in the media, they'll lie, cheat, and steal, manipulate falsely framed stories because they're more interested in winning. And that means we're at a disadvantage. So perhaps Hillary Clinton purportedly approved a plan to distract the public from her email scandal, or maybe we're looking too deeply into it. I can't say definitively, and that's the problem. On the other side, if this were Donald Trump, what do you think would have happened? Now, Devin Nunes has come out. He expects many more Durham indictments. Ratcliffe, of course, we saw the same thing from him. But let me show you how the media is handling it. This is fascinating. The New York Times, CNN, desperate to frame this in defense of the Democratic establishment, who may have committed some very serious crimes. The New York Times reports, court filings started a furor in right-wing outlets, but their narrative is off track. The latest alarmist claims about spying on Trump appear to be flawed, but the explanation is Byzantine, underlining the challenge for journalists in deciding what merits coverage. You see, the issue is, when this filing happened on a Friday, all of these mainstream outlets ignored it. They didn't cover it. Many people said, why? Seriously, why didn't this get more coverage? Well, maybe it's because it makes the establishment political class look bad. Well, the New York Times will step in and say, no. It's because those right-wing individuals are wrong. They say, when John Durham, the Trump-era special counsel investigating the inquiry into Russia's 2016 election interference, filed a pre-trial motion on Friday night, he slipped in a few extra sentences that set up furor among right-wing outlets about purported spying on Trump. But the entire narrative appeared to be mostly wrong or old news. The latest example of the challenge created by a barrage of similar conspiracy theories from Mr. Trump and his allies. Upon close inspection, these narratives are often based on a misleading presentation of the facts or outright misinformation. They also tend to involve dense and obscure issues, so dissecting them requires asking readers to expend significant mental energy and time, raising the question of whether news outlets should even cover such claims. Right. People just can't understand it, so we shouldn't even be covering it, right? Yet Trump allies portray the news media as engaged in a cover-up if they don't. Let me just say, if news emerges of an indictment of a Clinton-affiliated lawyer and you're not covering it, I mean, that's kind of crazy, don't you think? The latest example began with the motion from Mr. Durham filed in a case which he has brought against Michael Sussman, cybersecurity lawyer with links to the Democratic Party. The filing was ostensibly about potential conflicts of interest, but it also recounted a meeting at which Mr. Sussman had presented other suspicions to the government in February of 2017. Sussman told the CIA about odd internet data suggesting that someone using a Russian-made smartphone may have been connecting to networks at Trump Tower and the White House, among other places. Sussman had obtained the information from a client, a technology executive named Rodney Joffe. Another paragraph in the court filing said that Mr. Joff's company Newstar had helped maintain internet-related servers for the White House, and that he and his associates exploited this arrangement by mining certain records to gather derogatory information about Mr. Trump. Citing this filing, Fox News inaccurately declared that Mr. Durham had said he had evidence that Hillary Clinton's campaign had paid a technology company to infiltrate a White House server. Sounds like an opinion. Sounds like a framing device. I think it warrants criticism for sure, because there's circuitous methods afoot. They go on to say, the Washington Examiner claimed that this all meant there had been spying on Mr. Trump's White House office. And when the mainstream publications held back, Mr. Trump and his allies began shaming the news media. There are many problems with this. For one, much of this was not new. The New York Times had reported in October what Mr. Sussman had told the CIA about data. The conservative media also skewed what the filing said. For example, Mr. Durham's filing never used the word infiltrate, and it never claimed that Mr. Joff's company was being paid by the Clinton campaign. I'm sorry, but according to the Washington Free Beacon, the Clinton campaign did, according to FEC filings. Well, let me just make sure I pull this up. They go on to say, let me get the exact number. Records show the Clinton campaign paid the firm $3,000 in May of 2015 for mobile phone services. The Democratic Congressional Campaign Committee $3,000 to Newstar in 2017. The Biden campaign paid them in 2020. They paid them. Now look, $3,000, maybe it's not that much money. Maybe there's something deeper here. Or to be completely honest, maybe there's not a whole lot. For real, maybe there is not a whole lot. They go on to say, most important, contrary to the reporting, the filing never said the White House data that came under scrutiny was from the Trump era, according to lawyers for David Dagone, a Georgia Institute of Technology data scientist who helped develop the YOTA analysis. The data, so-called DNS logs, which are on records of when computers or smartphones have prepared to communicate with servers over the internet, came from Barack Obama's presidency. Well, that's strange. So you mean these guys were providing services and tracking data in during the Trump campaign, servers that Trump was using, but it was Obama's. Something doesn't seem right about what the New York Times is saying, but to be completely fair, I do think they're making some good points. I just think their goal is to obfuscate as much as possible. The challenge here is that while CNN does something similar, Special Counsel Durham alleges Clinton campaign lawyer used data to raise suspicions about Trump. Well, hold on there a minute. How would he have used data from Obama to raise suspicions about Trump? Oh, wait. Was Obama spying on Donald Trump? Perhaps that's the issue. So perhaps it is fair to say we are wrong. They weren't spying on then President Trump. They were spying on servers in the White House to collect data on what Trump was doing because Obama was spying on Trump. I mean, look, any way you cut it, something doesn't add up. Now, when CNN says special counsel alleges this, I mean, this is it, that they were trying to raise suspicions on Trump. And they still try and say that it was vague and technical jargon. And they go on to explain it. They're trying to downplay things. Now, I can't speak to what's happening behind the scenes. I don't know what's going on with Durham. I do know that many people are pointing out this. We have KATV. Past Hillary Clinton tweets loom amid accusations her campaign paid to spy on Trump. And then we have this from the Wall Street Journal. Trump really was spied on. Durham says techies linked to the Clinton campaign had access to White House and Trump Tower internet data. So let's make sure we're getting the facts right, which is why I want to give respect to the editorial board of the Wall Street Journal. It seems like this is the fairest assessment. Did the Clinton campaign pay someone to spy on Trump? It doesn't appear we have data to support that. We can speculate because it appears that Democrat-tied Clinton campaign-linked organizations were doing something like this. The Biden campaign is paying for it, implicating them in this big circuitous net, but it is very, very speculative. The Wall Street Journal says. They go on to mention Durham's filing, which we've read a great deal about. The filing relates to Mr. Durham's September indictment. The indictment revealed that Mr. Sussman worked with Tech Exec 1, who had been identified as Rodney Joffe, formerly of Newstar Inc. The indictment says Mr. Joffe used his companies as well as researchers at a U.S. university to access internet data, which he used to gather information about Mr. Trump's communications. Durham says Joffe's goal was to create an inference and narrative about Mr. Trump that would please certain VIPs, referring to individuals at Perkins Coie and the Clinton campaign. The new shocker relates to the data Mr. Joffe and friends were mining. According to Friday's filing, as early as July 2016, Mr. Joffe was exploiting his access to non-public and or proprietary internet data, including internet traffic pertaining to the executive office of the President of the United States. Now, that would have been Barack Obama. The filing explains that Joffe's employer had come to access and maintain dedicated servers for the EOP as part of a sensitive arrangement whereby it provided internet services to the White House. White House communications are supposed to be secure, and the notion that any contractor, much less one with ties to a presidential campaign, could access them is alarming enough. The implication that the data was exploited for a political purpose is a scandal that requires investigation under oath. The filing suggests the data collection continued into the Trump presidency. Mr. Durham says that on February 9th, 2017, Mr. Sussman met with a second federal agent, federal agency, Agency 2, to provide an updated set of allegations, and that these allegations relied in part on the purported internet traffic that Mr. Joffe and others had assembled pertaining to Trump Tower, Donald Trump's New York City apartment building, and the EOP, and a healthcare provider. Late Monday, a spokesperson for Mr. Joffe said in a statement that contrary to the allegations in this recent filing, Joffe is an apolitical internet security expert with decades of service to the U.S. government who has never worked for a political party. The statement added that there are serious and legitimate national security concerns about the Russians' attempt to infiltrate the 2016 election, and that respected cybersecurity researchers were deeply concerned about the anomalies they found in the data and prepared to report their findings, which was subsequently shared with the CIA. That could certainly use some elaboration. The filing says the new allegations Mr. Sussman provided, claiming suspicious ties between a Russian mobile phone operator and the White House, were also bogus and that Mr. Sussman again made the false claim that he wasn't working on behalf of a client. That is to say, Durham is outright stating he was spying on Trump into the White House, on his campaign, and lying about it to smear him. And also, the New York Times is basically saying the same thing. They weren't really working for anybody. Durham says otherwise. They're going to say Mr. Durham's revelations take the 2016 collusion scam well beyond the Steele dossier, which was based on the unvetted claims of a Russian emigre working in Washington. Those claims and the Sussman assertions were channeled to the highest levels of the government via contacts at the FBI, CIA, and State Department. They became fodder for secret and unjustified warrants against former Trump campaign official, and later for Robert Mueller's 2-year mole hunt that turned up no evidence of collusion. Along the way, the Clinton campaign fed these bogus claims to a willing and gullible media. And now we know its operatives used private tech researchers to monitor White House communications. If you made this up, you'd be laughed out of a Netflix story pitch. Durham's legal filing is related to a certain conflicts of interest in Mr. Sussman's legal team, and it remains unclear where else his probe is going. But the unfolding information underscores the Russia collusion story was one of the dirtiest tricks in U.S. political history. Mr. Durham should tell the whole sordid story. The New York Times says it's not true. The Wall Street Journal says it is true. You decide for yourself. I can't come here and tell you what is or isn't, but I can say my opinion. If Hillary Clinton is going to come out with a tweet, and we have the tweet from Hillary Clinton, October 31st, 2016, when she says, computer scientists have apparently uncovered a covert server linking the Trump organization to a Russian-based bank. When this information comes out, pleasing the VIPs at Perkins Coie, the Clinton campaign, can we assume that there was just a zealous upstart who said, if I find this information, they'll all love me? Or could it be it's what they wanted? Could it be that there was an indirect arrangement for this? I believe something of that nature, an accusation to such degree, requires hard evidence. But it's kind of evidence that's really hard to come by. If Clinton met at a dinner with person A and said, I'd really love it if we just had this information. It'd be so helpful to us, but, maybe it's not true. Oh, won't someone rid me of this priest? You know that story? And then it was overheard by somebody who went and rid the king of the priest. Hillary Clinton could say, oh, won't someone find me this information? Let me explain to you the bare minimum of what we may be seeing. Donald Trump on TV said something about Hillary Clinton's emails. He said, if Russia did hack these things, it'd be great if they had them and they published them. And then everyone came out and screamed, Donald Trump was calling on Russia to hack a political rival and blah, blah, blah. It's ridiculous. Hillary Clinton destroyed public records. The accusation is that she did that. She's now pushing the Russia narrative to distract from this. We basically have the same story, Donald Trump wanted to see emails. And so he said, oh, won't someone rid me of this priest? Hillary Clinton could have effectively done the same thing. Oh, won't someone find me this information? They say this could be the most direct link yet between Donald Trump and Moscow. This country is being ripped apart. I blame Hillary Clinton. I think Trump has a role to play for sure. But it's being ripped apart. You know what this could really be, to be completely honest? It could be that politics in this country has gotten so dirty that it crossed a line and it grew out of control. Hillary Clinton's accusation against Donald Trump about Russian collusion was not meant to go this far. Maybe she was thinking to herself, he wants to accuse me about emails? We'll claim he's a Russian or something. And maybe they didn't really think it would result in everything it resulted in. Or maybe they thought it was a smear, wouldn't go that far, they'd win the presidency, and that'd be the end of it. But that's not what happened. Donald Trump won in 2016. And so they pushed the narrative, maybe thinking we've got to do something to stop him. I'll tell you what I think. I think the Hillary Clinton administration, Barack Obama, the Democratic establishment, Joe Biden, all of these people, they're all part of the same club. I think they've been doing illegal activities in Ukraine. I think they've been doing this for some time. I think the establishment has been gutting and selling out this country and engaging in foreign wars for profit. And Donald Trump was not supposed to win, but he did. And then he was about to expose everything this criminal class had been doing. The Qatar-Turkey pipeline and all of their goals. Of course, it would greatly benefit Europe's gas prices or whatever. But it was insidious. It was nefarious. It was malicious. Joe Biden's family growing very wealthy, tracking alongside his career, so saith Politico magazine. Could it be that they thought they'd beat Trump? And once Trump got in, they knew he was the kind of guy to actually go after them and dig into these things. Could it be that they had to prevent him from doing anything that could disrupt their plans? They had to hold him back for 4 years, lying, cheating, and stealing, so that they could get back in and clean up their mess. Maybe, I don't know. Just an idea. I think it warrants an investigation. I think it's probable cause at the very least. Donald Trump sees a video of Joe Biden admitting to a quid pro quo. If you don't fire the prosecutor, you don't get the $1 billion. Donald Trump says, look into it. He gets impeached for doing it. No real substantive investigation is had. And now, after we see our Joe Biden become president within a year, the Ukraine embassy has destroyed computer equipment. So even if Donald Trump wins again in 2024 and goes on to be inaugurated in 2025, there's nothing to be found, is there? These people who are engaging in my opinion, criminal activities, they'll have gotten away with it. Let me tell you about those criminal activities, because I'm sure there's going to be some leftists who are like, Tim Pool pushes conspiracy theory. No, it's not a conspiracy theory. It's solid reporting. Joe Biden tried to get a prosecutor fired. The prosecutor signed a sworn affidavit saying he was fired by the president because of Joe Biden. Maybe he's lying, but that's not a theory. He literally said it happened. I'm not making up any ideas. I'm just literally saying, wow, former prosecutor came out and said he was fired because Joe Biden ordered them to do it. And then we had Mykola Zlochevsky, who was the founder of Burisma, the energy company where Hunter Biden was on the board, not a conspiracy, that literally happened. And this prosecutor, Victor Shokin, had opened investigations into Mykola Zlochevsky, the founder of Burisma. Joe Biden comes in, fires the guy. That's not a conspiracy theory. All of those things are true. Now, what we would need to break down is intent, motive, and the underlying stories between these instances. Maybe you can't say Joe Biden did it for these reasons. I can't read his mind. I don't know. But what is a fact? Joe Biden threatened to withhold aid. Fact. The prosecutor signed a sworn affidavit saying he was fired because of that threat. Fact. The prosecutor was investigating Mykola Zlochevsky, the founder of an energy company where Joe Biden's son was on the board. Fact. Those things all happened. Donald Trump said, I want it looked into. Fact. He was impeached for saying this. They called it an abuse of power. Now, all that right there says to me, something happened there. They came out and they said that the reason they wanted to fire the prosecutor is because he wasn't looking into corruption. I don't believe it. Mykola Zlochevsky had fled the country when Donald Trump became president. And once Donald Trump was out, dude came back. I think the whole thing's weird. So I don't know. I don't know exactly what's going on. We're just scratching the surface. But me, as but a humble layman researching these stories, I think it's fair to say that when Politico magazine runs a story called Biden Inc., which says Biden's family fortunes track alongside his political career, sounds to me like there's reason to believe Joe Biden is crooked and helping his family. When Hillary Clinton is pushing the same narrative that this tech guy is pushing, sounds to me like there's possible involvement. Or at the very least, it's her saying, oh, won't someone find me damning information on Trump about the Russians? And then someone did. But she didn't pay for it. You got to watch. You got to watch out. You got to get through the weeds on this stuff. The New York Times isn't completely wrong, right? A lot of people have been falsely framing or incorrectly framing what's coming out of this Durham filing. But I take it from the Wall Street Journal outright. I mean, Trump was spied on. This is crazy stuff. I'll leave it there. Next segment's coming up at 8 p.m. tonight over at youtube.com/TimCastIRL. Thanks for hanging out, and I'll see you all then.